Outside. If you fly, there's a chance you can escape. Run, even if it's on. LYU. We'll try to buy you some time, a minute, no, 10 seconds. Now that is an interesting idea. Aura, open the exit. I will humor them. Understood. Ains pointed at the direction Roberdick and the others had entered from. Aura leapt up, the bottoms of her shoes glowed, and her body disappeared. Now then, Aura has gone to open the gate. Go ahead and flee. Abandon your comrades. Who was the one who wanted to run again? Ains extended his hand. His skeletal face could not display any expressions, but from his gesture, it was clear enough. If he had flesh, it would have been twisted into an evil smile. It would have been a smile that eagerly anticipated these comrades to fall into infighting. It was true that workers were different from adventurers, they formed parties based on the power of money and useful relationships, and in a situation like this, the odds of them fleeing would be quite high. However, Foresight was different. Archie, run now. Yes, run, Imina smiled. You still have your sisters, right? Then leave us and go. That's what you should be doing. How could I? This is obviously all my fault. Seeing that Ains had no intent to press the attack right away, Roberdick walked over to Archie, and then withdrew a small leather pouch from somewhere close to his heart for her to hold on to. It'll be fine. We'll beat that monster Ains and then come right after you. That's right. When that happens, you're buying the drinks. Imina also drew forth a small pouch for her to hold. Then go. Use the money I left at the inn as you wish. Mine too. I'll hold you to that. Then, I'll be going first. Of course, none of the three actually believed it. Defeating the being called Ains, whose power was far beyond their imagining, was something they could not even hope to do. Archie knew that this was their final farewell, and she was choking back her tears as she cast her spell. There are monsters in the sky that might still catch you even if you run, fly. Ignoring Ains' warning, Archie's spell took effect. She looked to her comrades one last time, and then took to the air without another word. Ah, is that how it is? Well, it's faster and less tiring than running, Ains said in a casual way. However, it's quite remarkable that you decided it without fighting with each other. I thought I would see your disgusting true selves on display here. You would never understand. It's because we're comrades. That's true. Dying to protect a comrade is not a bad thing. A flash of insight struck Imina. Were your comrades the friends you spoke of? Moo. Your comrades must have been exceptional individuals, no? Then, our relationship is as close as theirs and yours. That's right. The evil atmosphere vanished as though it had never been, and Ains continued in a quiet tone. Greater love hath no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends, so it was written in the Gospel of Marco. It's all right if we die. However, for the sake of the bond that we share, that you yourself and your exceptional comrades shared, please let her go. Ains hesitated for several seconds, and then shook his head. There will be no mercy for thieves like you. All that awaits is suffering upon suffering upon suffering, followed by death. But for the sake of the lives that you are willing to throw away for your comrade, I will make an exception for that girl. Shaltir. Ains carelessly showed his back to them, and called out to the VIP box. There was no chance he would be hurt, and it showed in his attitude. No, that was the reality of it. There was no attack they could use which would work. This was mere fantasy after understanding the truth of things. The two of them had no method which could wound the monster called Ains. Because of this, they could calmly turn their heads back. At the very least, they had to buy Archie the time to flee. Although they had no cards to play, they still had to do it. Imina and Roberdick exchanged looks and nodded. On the other hand, a girl's voice came from the VIP box in response to Ains' voice. She was a human girl with hair that gleamed like platinum. Although the two of them were filled with anger, they could not help but be captivated by that beauty, their eyes drawn to the girl who possessed it. Suddenly, The beautiful girl shifted her line of sight to look at the two of them. Her eyes were an entrancing crimson. Imina felt as though they were squeezing her heart. Similarly for Roberdick, he was having trouble breathing with the crushing pressure on his chest. Even after the girl's eyes left them, Imina and Roberdick still felt a little hampered. Shaltir, teach that child the meaning of terror. Teach her the gulf between the sliver of hope for escape that she clings to, and the inescapable reality that awaits all who dare invade the great tomb of Nazareth. After that, do not cause her any pain, but slay her with the deepest and sincerest mercy. Understood, Ains Sama. The girl, Shaltir, smiled to Ains. However, when Imina saw that smile from the side, a chill ran down her spine. Her instinct told her that this was a monster draped in a very beautiful skin. Do enjoy the hunt. That was my intention. Shaltir bowed deeply to Ains before setting forth. Every step she took was one closer to ending Archie's life, but even if Imina knew it in her mind, there was nothing they could do about it. Imina and Roberdick were both unable to move. Shaltir walked past them without any sign that she had noticed them, without paying them the slightest bit of attention. Perhaps foresight could close the distance between themselves and Shaltir immediately if they ran after her, but she seemed so far away. What's this? Still not coming? If you have time to talk, you have time to fight. How unexpectedly honorable of you. He was not looking down on her. His sentiment was genuine. In response to it, Imina's fighting spirit recovered somewhat. Wait. A question, please. What happened there? Where is the mercy in that? A priest, then, I will tell you. In Nazareth, a death without further suffering is mercy enough. Silence descended upon them. They would no longer speak with words, but weapons. Let's go, Rober. Yes. Oha. With an uncharacteristic battle cry, the charging Roberdick brought his mace down on Ains' face. It was a strike made with all his strength. It was precisely because he thought that Ains would not evade it that he put all his might into the blow. Although Ains took the full power strike in the face, he did not react with pain as expected. Roberdick followed up his attack, reaching out with his bare hand. Middle cure wounds. The healing spell was targeted at Ains. When exposed to healing-type magic, undead would take damage instead. However, like the attack spell Archie cast earlier, it vanished uselessly against an invisible wall. Aha! Imina tensed her bowstring as she cried out. Then she loosed. Although Roberdick was next to Ains, she was not nearly bad enough to actually hit him. Rather, at this range, there was no way she could miss. Yet, the arrows struck Ains and fell to the ground without doing any damage whatsoever. Ains vanished. It was the same tactic as earlier. Teleportation. Not quite. As expected, the voice came from behind. Before Roberdick could finish, Ains' hand gently settled on Imina's shoulder. There was no hostility in that gesture. However, it had a telling effect. All the strength in her body vanished, and she slumped to the ground. Although her mind was fully functional and conscious, her body felt like a puddle of immobile, insensate slime. What did you do to her? Roberdick asked his question in a trembling voice, as his eyes went from the collapsed Imina to Ains, who stood by her side. Was that a surprise? It's nothing special. Ains proceeded to explain in such a way as to break Roberdick's spirit. It was almost the same as just now. After casting a silent, time stop, I moved over here and cast the same spell I used on that man, Touch of Undeath. And then, I just touched her. The air between them froze into silence. The sound of Roberdick swallowing was exceptionally loud in comparison. You stopped time. Oh yes. Anti-time stop countermeasures are very important, don't you know? You'll need to have them by the time you hit level 70. Oh well, you're going to die here, so in your case, it's largely academic. Roberdick ground his teeth. He was lying. If only he could say that. If only he could deny everything this monster, this god, was saying. It would be better if he fell to his knees and clutched his ears to shut the words out. He understood that Ains was very powerful. However, even with that considered, stopping time and the like was something that should not exist in this world. The march of time was a flow that could not be mastered or controlled by humanity. What could he do against a foe who was capable of such a feat? Cutting down an entire forest with a single sword would be an easier goal in comparison. Ains Ulgaun. He was a being that the human race could never defeat. He was a man who stood in the realm of divinity. He gripped his mace in both hands, and he felt a light tap on his shoulder. Ah, Roberdik's body stopped moving. He did not have to look to know who had done it. It was Ains Ulgaun, that godlike being who could control the passage of time, who was supposed to be standing in front of him. When had he vanished from his field of vision? The cold flowing into him made him feel as though he had turned into an ice sculpture. Thus, any feeling and freedom were stripped from his body. It was useless, wasn't it? So spoke the gentle voice which carried no trace of enmity to Roberdik. The mace fell from nerveless fingers, to the ground, then, Ains muttered as he looked to Roberdik who had lost all will to fight. Well, that was a waste of effort. I think I might have actually broken a sweat. It was completely useless. Every tactic and trick he had tried could not do even the slightest bit of damage to Ains. Thoroughly defeated, Roberdik looked quietly at Ains, and calmly asked him a question. I have something to ask. What is to become of me afterwards? Is it because you're a divine magic caster, and you think you won't end up in the same state as those other two? With that as a premise, Ains began his explanation. Well, let's start with those two. Aura, take them to the large cave. Gashakukachua says he's running out of nests. The dark elf's ears twitched and her eyes went wide. Ains-sama. Mare. I can order Mare to go instead, right? Make him go there instead. Oh, fine with me. Understood. I'll let Mare go instead. As for that, I apologize. There will be no kind fate in store for them. As for you, the subordinate I sent in pursuit is also a divine magic caster, but the god she believes in is completely different from the gods you worship. When it comes down to it, I have no idea what the 4 great gods you worship are. As such, I need to confirm the details on them. As their subordinates, you have names for them, but whether they're the 4 gods, or the 6 gods, these names are little more than job titles, like the fire god, earth god, is that it? I don't know about that. I see, so they're not superior beings who possess a mysterious power, they're nothing more than great men of the past who've been deified. Impossible. Well, do listen. That's just my theory. But if that were the case, if you do borrow the power of the gods to work your magic, could dead people provide it to you? Or rather, what are the gods? Do they even exist? Are you really using the power of the gods? What are you trying to say? Have you ever seen the gods? The gods are always by my side. That is to say, you've never actually seen them directly, then? No. When we use our spells, we feel the presence of a mighty being. That is our god. And who declared that presence to be a god? The god himself? Or someone else drawing on that power? Roberdik recalled the theological debates he had taken part in. There was no clear answer to Ains' questions. Until today, the priests still debated hotly over whether that was the proof of the god's existence. Just as Roberdik was about to speak, Ains interrupted him. Well, supposing these superdimensional beings, which we shall generously term gods for our purposes, do exist, I wonder if that means they were originally colorless entities. Simply put, they are masses of power. Because drawing on their power dyes them in a different color, and changes the thing, well, they do exist in a world with magical laws. I just wanted someone to chat with someone about this. It wouldn't be funny if there really were gods. My apologies. That was off topic. The power of the god you believe in. I think we won't be able to learn it, so do you want to take part in a human experiment? A human experiment? That's right. For instance, when we alter your memories so the god you believe in is someone else, what will happen after that? He's insane. That was Roberdick's deepest and most honest thought about the situation. No, he's undead. It wouldn't be strange no matter what he did. Ains took a step back, looking with deep interest at Roberdick. That look was the way a scholar would examine a laboratory animal, and it made Roberdick want to throw up. Why do you want to do that? To prove that God exists, I'm not going to bother going on with that joke. Truthfully, I want to become stronger by understanding the nature of that power. And if those beings you call gods really exist, I want to know if they have emotions or thoughts. I want to confirm that. As for me, I have never thought of myself as a chosen being. In truth, there are many others like that. Roberdick had no idea what Ains was talking about. Therefore, expanding military preparations is essential. Of course, it may be that no enemies exist, or if they do exist, none of them are as strong as we are. However, don't you think that the leader of an organization shouldn't be negligent? After all, if we rest on our laurels, we're likely to have our feet cut out from under us when we least expect it. Confirming the existence of gods is part of that. Ains shrugged as he finished. Part 2. Archie panted heavily. Her body trembled every time the grass rustled in the wind. Like a small animal, she looked fearfully in every direction. She was surrounded by forest, and there were few places here where the light could reach. The spreading canopies of the densely packed vegetation blocked out any illumination from the sky, and so there was almost none on the surface. Although this environment would normally be difficult for a human being to navigate, in lieu of illumination, Archie used the dark vision spell, which made her surroundings seem as bright as day. However, even with this spell, she still needed a lot of concentration to pick out grass patches which people could be hiding in, tree trunks that might conceal enemies behind them, and listen to the branches creaking as they swayed in the wind. As an arcane magic caster, Archie could not count on her own physical strength to shake off any monsters if they leaped onto her and pinned her down. Normally, she would have help from her friends, but now there was nobody to support her, nobody to cover her, and nobody to heal her. In other words, all she could do was remain alert for foes who were trying to advance into close quarters, keep her distance, and flee. She was on edge because she was keenly aware of this fact, and it sapped her mental strength even more than normal. Her original plan was to use a fly spell to make her get away, since she was outside. But once she flew above the trees, she saw a huge black shape in the sky which seemed to be searching for something, so she abandoned that plan. Once she detected the presence of the giant bat, she could not find it in herself to try and turn it into a contest of speed. That was because even though invisibility could fool visual senses, it could not deceive the special sensory organs of a bat. After verifying that her surroundings were safe, Archie took flight once more, at a snail's pace. She was proceeding as slowly as possible with her fly spell because she wanted to observe her surroundings. If she went at full speed, she would not be able to react quickly enough even if she were on alert and spotted a threat, and that would mean she would be leaping into the mouth of any monsters which pursued her. In order to avoid this, she deliberately lowered her speed. Finally, Archie felt the layer of magic energy surrounding her growing thin. Her fly spell's duration was about to run out. She slowly descended to the ground. The question now was, what should she do? Casting fly again would not be a problem. She could feel that she had enough mana for it. However, dark vision was also a crucial spell, and she also had to reserve enough mana for defensive spells in case of combat. The third tier spell, fly, was one of the highest ranked spells Archie knew how to use. This also meant that it was one of the most draining spells she had. If possible, she wanted to avoid using it. Ignoring the present circumstances, even she did not know how long it would take to get out of this forest without the use of spells that would stave off her fatigue. And without the ability to fly, she could not even confirm her current location. On the way here, Archie had occasionally risen above the forest canopy and used the big tree beside the Colosseum as a landmark. When she used fly to travel, she lost her sense of direction. If she stayed in the forest, she could not spot the big tree, and she was not able to climb trees either. Where can I rest? Archie mumbled to herself. Certainly, if she restored her mana through sleep, she could use fly more often, and movement under the sun would be safer. This was particularly true for the forest, where the monsters tended to be nocturnal. It might be better for her to curl up somewhere and wait for daybreak, rather than force herself to carry on in the dark forest. However, Archie had no idea where the safe places were. If Imina were here, she would probably know. And if Roberdick or Hecarim were around, she could rest easy even in dangerous areas. However, her reliable companions were not with her. Imina, Roberdick. Archie curled up beside a huge tree, and thought of her comrades. Liars. There had been no word from them after so long. As expected, they had not been able to escape. No, that was something she had known from the beginning. There was no way they could beat the ridiculous entity known as Ains. Even so, was she a fool for holding on to the faint hope of seeing them again? Archie sat on the ground, leaned her back on the great tree, and closed her eyes. She knew it was dangerous. Still, she wanted to close her eyes. As the memory of the three of them came to mind, she squeezed her eyelids shut. The icy cool sensation of the bark against her head was very comfortable. It was only after she had rested for a while that she realized just how tired she had been. Her stress turned into emotional exhaustion, and it rose without stopping. Hiya, she let her head rest against the tree. And then she opened her eyes wide. Dark vision painted the world of night in fresh, bright colors, but she had no explanation for what she saw in her field of vision. Someone was watching Archie. It was like nothing Archie had ever seen before, and her eyes seemed transfixed on the sight of the beautiful girl. She was dressed in a velvet soft ball gown dyed in the darkest shade of black, a garment that seemed thoroughly unsuited for her present environment. Her skin was as pale as wax. A single hand stroked her long, platinum hair, which seemed about to brush across Archie's face. Though she was a noble daughter, Archie had never seen a girl this beautiful before. If she were to show up at a formal dance, men would flock to her like moths to a flame, purely out of desire for her beauty. Her crimson pupils radiated an irresistible charm that seemed to draw Archie's soul into them. But Archie immediately returned to her senses. There was no way someone like that would be in a place like this. Especially not someone with both feet on the tree trunk, standing parallel to the ground in utter defiance of gravity. It was obvious that this was a pursuer sent by Ains. Still, it was not completely impossible that she might have been a resident in the forest for a long time. Tag. You're it. Her fleeting hopes had been utterly dashed. A pursuer. Archie leapt away to open up a gap, pointing her staff at the girl. The girl seemed disinterested in Archie, and neatly walked down the tree trunk and onto the floor. Come now, start running. If I defeat you here, I can flee more safely. Even as she said this, Archie smiled bitterly in her heart. There was no way she could beat any pursuer sent by Ains, a being who existed outside the bounds of common sense. Knowing this, the reason why she said so was to gauge the other party's reaction. Then, by all means, although I can only play with you for a while. Her attitude said that she completely understood the difference in power between the two of them. Which was to say, if she fought Archie, it would be nothing more than toying with her. Fly. Archie cast her spell and began to flee. There was not the leisurely, slow flight she had demonstrated on the ground. In one swift movement she was aloft, covering her face with her arms as she broke through the forest canopy and soared into the air. Under the night sky, Archie looked around once more. She was on guard for the bat-like monster she had seen earlier. However, it seemed that it was nowhere around. And so, all that was left was to escape. Yes, yes, keep it up, the beautiful voice called out to Archie, who was desperately trying to flee. Her heart lurched. Casting frantic glances around, Archie tried to see where it was coming from. It was from in front and above her. When had she, the girl from just now, was there? Lightning. Bluish-white lightning leapt from her staff's head and cleaved through the night. This was Archie's strongest attack spell. Even though it pierced the girl, the smile did not vanish from her face. Archie was sure of it. This was a being on par with Ains, which meant that there was no way Archie could defeat her. The girl cheerfully spoke to Archie, who was eager to flee. "Come, my familiars." An enormous pair of wings extended from behind the girl's back. They were like a bat's in shape, but far, far larger. An enormous bat flew out from behind her, like it had detached from her body. And of course, no bat with glowing crimson eyes like that could be a mere beast. The girl smiled from beside the giant bat, whose wings beat steadily through the air. It was a smile that froze Archie's body like ice, a smile that did not seem to belong on someone her age at all. "Well then, do continue to flee." Archie fled. All she did was flee. She flew into the forest to lose her pursuer, and the branches scratched her body as she fled. Since she had discarded her companions to escape, that meant she had to make it out of here no matter what. In her mind, she would do anything to make that happen. And after a flight of who knew how long, Archie stared despair in the face. It was a wall. An invisible wall stood in front of her. The world went on beyond it, but Archie's body was blocked by that wall. Archie was now 200 meters above ground level, and the invisible wall had reached this high. "This is," Archie muttered to herself as despair seeped into her heart. She flew and felt around with her hands. But wall, still a wall. No matter where she flew, her hands told her there was something hard in her way. What is this? A wall, of course. It was an answer to her self-directed mutterings. Archie turned around, with an idea of who she might see. It was as she had expected. The girl from earlier. But now she had a trio of giant bats as her escorts. Though it seems you've gotten the wrong impression. This is the 6th floor of the Great Tomb of Nazareth. That is to say, you're underground. This? Archie pointed to the world. The sky, the stars, the gently blowing wind, the forest which stretched as far as the eye could see. Although she did not think this place could be under the earth, when it came to these people, even that might be a possibility. The 41 supreme beings, our most august creators, once ruled this place. It was created by them, and even we don't understand all of it. They created a world? That would make them like gods. That's correct. To us, they are beings on the same level as gods. Gods with Ain Sama as their leader. Archie looked around. She had accepted it. As expected, after seeing all this, the only thing she could do was accept it. There was no way she would be returning alive. Well then, not fleeing? Would it even be possible? Of course not. There was never any intention to allow you to escape to begin with. Is that so? Archie gripped her staff tightly with both hands and charged the girl. She could no longer use spells since she was out of mana. However, even in this most hopeless of situations, she still had to try her best until the very last moment. This was the duty of Archie, the sole surviving member of Foresight. There, you've done your best. The girl's reply to Archie's fully determined charge was little more than bored dismissal. Then, your sad little escape attempt ends here, though it's a shame I couldn't see you break down in tears. The girl easily caught the staff with one hand and yanked it toward herself. Archie was thrown off balance and fell into the arms of the girl. The two of them ended up embracing in midair. In this position, the girl buried her face into Archie's neck. Although Archie tried to struggle, the girl who stuck to her like glue could not be shaken off. She breathed hotly on Archie's neck, and Archie's body quivered. The stink of sweat. Not being able to keep one's body clean was part and parcel of the worker's life for Archie. This was true for all workers, adventurers, travelers, and anyone who spent time moving around outside. Even if they got dirty, the appropriate response would be so what? However, she still felt deeply ashamed at being told this by a girl who was younger and more beautiful than her. The girl's face left Archie's neck. A feeling of revulsion swept up over Archie as she looked into those crimson eyes. Within those eyes burned a lust for the female body, stained with the same carnal desire that men possessed for women. Be at ease. You will die without experiencing any suffering. Be grateful to Ains-sama for his mercy. Archie wanted to respond, but instead all she felt was surprise at the fact that her body had been immobilized. It was as though those crimson pupils had stolen away her soul. At last, Archie realized the true identity of the girl. She was not human, she was a vampire. And then, the girl's face drew closer to Archie's, her tongue slipping past her lips to lightly lick at Archie's cheeks. Salty, the girl laughed, and despair swallowed Archie's soul. That only made the girl laugh harder. Her lips split apart to her ears. The red of her irises spread to engulf their respective eyeballs. With a cracking sound, she opened her mouth. What had once been neat, pearly white teeth were now things that made people think of medical syringes, in multiple rows like those of a shark. Her lascivious voice was laced with lewd undertones, and clear drool oozed from the corners of her mouth. And then, terror enveloped Archie completely. Ahahaha. Archie's mind lost hold on consciousness in the face of the laughing monster that reeked of blood. The last thing that went through her mind was the faces of her two sisters waiting for her. Who? Fainted already? Then there's no need to knock you out with magic. You can embrace death in your dreams. Part 3. After handing the intruders over to his subordinates to handle, Ains activated the monitor within the throne room and scrolled through Nazarik's data. The figure which most concerned him, their remaining funds, had only shifted very slightly. That was because they had hardly activated any cash item traps. Thus, it could be counted as a very successful training exercise. Ains turned to Albedo, who was nervously awaiting Ains' opinion, and smiled broadly, although a skeletal face could not show any expressions, before praising her. Very well done. While the intruders were all weak, they were fairly skilled among the humans of this world. In addition, you eliminated them with barely any expenditures. It would seem I can entrust the task of defense to you in future. Thank you for your praise. Albedo looked visibly relieved as she bowed her head in gratitude. Then, Ains-sama, are there any problems with the time? It's fine. I've asked Pandora's actor. Well, the people on top think the workers are taking their time. They've decided to wait one day, or until there's some change in the ruins. After seeing that none of the workers had returned by dawn, the adventurers had flown into a panic, but Mammon, Pandora's actor, suggested that they wait another day and see. While they had already arranged that to leave the campsite and observe from further away in case of emergency, the word of an adamantite-ranked adventurer carried more weight than their previous plans. Then, may I occupy a bit of your precious time? In truth, I have a question to ask, Ains-sama. What is it, Albedo? A moment please. All right, it's fine. Ains turned around after making a final check on Hamsuk and the lizard men through the monitor. What is this question? Yes. She looked around before speaking. This concerns what those fools said just now. How high is searching for the supreme beings on your list of priorities, Ains-sama? At the top. So long as it does not place the great underground tomb of Nazarik in danger, it will be our topmost priority, Ains answered without delay. I see. I understand. Then, I have a proposal, that you will allow me to put together a unit under me that will search for the supreme beings. What do you mean? Ains' tone had unconsciously grown stiff, because he realized the dark side lurking within his heart. Until this date, he had several opportunities to actively search for his friends. However, he had kept pushing those plans back, because he lacked manpower, or had insufficient information. This was because he was afraid of scouring every corner of the world and finding nothing, so he could not make that decision. Rather than work hard just to confirm that he was alone, becoming a famous monster held more hope. Yes. The lies those fools told just now were of a very low grade, and were instantly seen through. However, we might encounter information in future whose veracity cannot be easily determined. Therefore, I would like to form a team to verify the reliability of this information, and at the same time investigate the whereabouts of the supreme beings. After I investigate in detail, I can report the results to you, Ains-sama. Ains caressed his chin with a bony hand. Is that so? He murmured to himself. He thought about his conversation with the workers, and what he felt was not anger, but emptiness. Wavering between hope and despair was truly a heart-wrenching thing. His own sentimentality aside, it would seem that as the group's leader, it was time for him to decide to advance, even if it was only by a small step. You do not need to do everything on your own, Albedo. I hope you will be able to continue administering Nazarick well. If you intend to gather information by heading outside, would Mare or Aura not be better choices? I hear there are dark elves in the outside world. It is as you say. However, there is one factor which makes me uneasy: loss of control. For instance, if she caught wind of Peroroncino-sama, Shaltir would surely abandon everything and do as she pleased. Similarly, if Aura and Mare learned of Bukabukagama, there is no telling what Aura and Mare will do. I see. Ain smiled bitterly as he thought of Shaltir. Indeed, I feel that is a possibility. In order to avoid that, I feel a team which is directly loyal to me would be more appropriate. So you will not go berserk when you learn about Tabula-san? Please be at ease. As the guardian overseer of Nazarick, I will not do so under any circumstances. I promise. I see. When it came to Albedo, a wise person, who was the most skilled at the internal administration of Nazarick, the chances of her going out of control due to her emotions ought to be very low. While she was a little off-kilter from time to time, there had never been any problems with the running of Nazarick while Ains had been gone, and she was worthy of trust. Personally, I feel Demiurge would also be acceptable, but he has many other duties to cover. Having him bear the weighty task of gathering information about the other supreme beings in addition to those tasks would be somewhat burdensome. What you said also makes sense. Then how about dispatching Pandora's actor? I was about to mention that. If possible, I would like to ask you to assign me Pandora's actor as my adjutant, Ain-sama. I see. Having two of Nazarick's most intelligent people working together will reduce the chances of mistakes compared to just one person, but he still has his duties in the treasury. I will lend him to you when the need arises. Thank you, Ain-sama. May I make several other requests? Ains raised his chin, indicating that she should continue. I would like my subordinates for the Supreme Being search team to be powerful. Of course, I will assign you a group of the highest-leveled vassals. Thank you, Ain-sama. In addition, I feel it would be very helpful if you could bestow upon an undead lieutenant handcrafted by yourself. That, I cannot approve. Indeed, the lieutenants I can make are level 90, but, rather than mercenary NPCs, one of Ain's skills allowed him to use experience points to create undead beings, an Overlord Wiseman or a Grim Reaper Thanatos. Since he could only have one at a time, they were very powerful. However, this world was not like Yggdrasil, where large amounts of experience points were easy to come by, and so he wanted to avoid skills which consumed experience points. Yes, I'll pass on that. Albedo, you will be in charge of the team, your adjutant will be Pandora's actor, and the other team members will be monsters. Understood. There is also one more thing. I would like to keep this group secret, and not let the other guardians know about it. Why is that? Won't it be better to have the guardians help? No. If news is carelessly leaked, the guardians, or the other creations of the supreme beings might ask us to bring them along in order to visually confirm the sightings. In that case, they might end up